it's homecoming, always a fun week of events, and I know it's tough for those football players to get ready for that homecoming game when they're thinking about the dance. We've heard coaches through the years talking, not the dance necessarily, but the festivities surrounding it. It has nothing to do with anything, does it?
I didn't even know there was a dance.
I don't know if there is.
Number one, I've never been invited. Maybe I should be talking to somebody else here about why I'm not getting invited to this dance.
But all, they got all the hoopla, the guys
You're right.
coming back. Players could care less, could they?
It's the same thing as Potato Bowl.
Yeah.
Actually, I think there's less than Potato Bowl, to be perfectly honest with you.
French fry feed.
Yeah, because
distraction.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's
A lot of grease.
I think there's less distractions, only from except for maybe, I think it depends on how they do this when former players return and how much access they're given. But by and large, I think this week is pretty much the status quo.
Yeah, I would think so.
So-
But Portland State in and 2-0 in the Big Sky, come up a win over Cal Poly. Only 2 games they've lost all year. Washington State, Oregon State, 2 FCS teams. And if you had a FBS
Pac-12.
teams, is that what it is? Yeah,
Just
you're
go 1A, 1AA. Come on.
to the level above guys, whatever. But maybe after the Montana State game, you might have went, we might pencil a W on that one. Maybe it's not going to be as, not that it was ever going to be easy, but.
Well, I think, UND's defense has been able to make Montana State and Montana very frustrated, especially Montana. And I think you look at 2 teams that don't often get frustrated like that. And then you go into a game against Portland State where, does this defense does it cause even more havoc against a team like Portland State that maybe in the past hasn't been able to handle some of those things? I think UND's got a great chance to pick up a win. The offense is still struggling, but if they're able to string some things together, avoid some of the costly mistakes that hurt them against Montana, they could piece together a full game and beat Portland State.
I'll be interested to see, but I have a feeling that Coach Schweigert and his staff will say, they may be able to run the ball, but that's exactly what we have to take away. We have to limit their running. They're a successful running team led by their quarterback, who's also a very capable runner. We have to take that away, and we have to force them into doing things that they're not necessarily comfortable doing, is passing.
Well, and isn't that what UND's been so good at?
Yeah.
Right. So they just have to kind of stay to the tried and true, basically, and hopefully that defense will come in with a little chip, maybe thinking, hey, we have to make a few more plays even yet to get us over the hump, and that's what it's going to take, because hopefully you just don't see them hanging their head or worrying too much about, dropping a tough game at home the week before.
And not having 9 penalties would help.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think.
That's a problem.
The women's hockey team travels to Mankato, open up the WCHA season. Those games are always a struggle, but UND always seems to come out on top in those, Brad.
Yeah, it's going to be key games for them to get back and try to bounce back from the Vermont game. Mankato lost a lot of players from last year's team. They have one really dynamic player up front, but this is where UND needs to try to exert their will on a team like this and get a couple of wins, because they'll be big come later in the season.
I haven't talked a lot of volleyball, but the volleyball team was on the road at the Montanas and won both of those matches, and now they get to go on the road again. Weber State and Idaho State tied with UND going in anyway for the top spot, and it looks like Coach Pryor's got them rolling pretty good, huh?
I look at what they did in Montana. It was kind of funny. They dropped their first set of that road trip against Montana for the third straight conference match in a row. They dropped their first set, but then they were 3-0 because they ended up winning the match. Then they went to Montana State and I think really dominated. Hopefully they just keep it going. Weber State's an interesting program. They play a different style of game typically from what I've seen in years past. Maybe it's changed now, but they're coaching an association with the men's Olympic program. So they play kind of a game that's really kind of a power game. And so that should be a very interesting matchup. So Weber State should be an interesting matchup. And Idaho State, obviously a first place battle, very top program in the, that went to the NCAA's a year ago, got hot in the conference. So that's a huge matchup for North Dakota.
And hockey matches up with Bemidji State, home and away, home first, then in Bemidji, and talk about it, you blew in the face about non-conference victories, and these are just games you have to have.
Yeah, for sure. This is the start of the non-conference schedule. They have a lot of games on there against teams that they're going to want to beat. Some teams that aren't going to finish real high in their standings. I don't know where Bemidji State's going to finish. They have a pretty good freshman class, but these will be their first games. They did not play an exhibition game, so UND will want to jump out to a quick start. Maybe they'll be a little sluggish in the first, like UND was Sunday night.
That's Friday at the Ralph, and then Saturday at the Sanford Center in Bemidji.